What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. And in this video, I am live on YouTube like always, and I'm continuing my series of doing a 7-round mock draft for every NFL team. I literally just got done doing a 7-round mock draft of the Miami Dolphins, so make sure to go check that out. So today's video of the 7-round mock draft is of the Washington football team. You know, they recently released Alex Smith, the Comeback Player of the Year. And I know lots of people may be upset, with them doing that, but it was actually really smart because now they have over $50 million in cap space. So it'll be really interesting to see what Washington will do, with all that money in free agency. So Washington has the 19th pick overall in the draft. And with the 19th pick, I had them selecting Alabama quarterback Matt Jones. I really, really like this pick. If he's there, I think they got to take him. Matt Jones, to me, he's really, really interesting. He does everything really, really good. I mean, he has a nice deep ball. He's really accurate. He's really, really, really smart. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks, coming out of the draft, in my opinion. But the thing about Matt Jones is, I think he'll be a good quarterback. But at the same time, I think he's already kind of reached his potential. And by that standpoint, it kind of reminds me of Daniel Jones a few years ago when he came out. Daniel Jones, in my opinion, was a good draft prospect, but at the same time, I could just kind of think he already reached his potential. He's not going to get better. He's just good. He's kind of reached his limit. And I think that's kind of the same way with Matt Jones, though. But I really like Jones. He was a system quarterback at Alabama. He was the game manager at Alabama. But I do think he can be pretty good in the NFL. I'm not going to, I don't think he's ever going to be elite. But I think he could be good. But I think that'd be a really nice pick there. Also, it just kind of depends on free agency. I think it's a possibility, Washington would sign, Cam Newton in free agency. And he maybe start some. But Matt Jones, I like that pick a lot. And, it'd be really, really interesting. Jones is really, really intriguing player to me because on my top 5 quarterback rankings, we're trying to get that video out within the next week or so. He's the only one I really don't have an obvious pro comparison to. But I like Jones. That's a fantastic pickup of that where it happened for the Washington football team. So when I stick around, I had them taking Trevon Moehrig, the safety from TCU. And like always, all of these 7-round mock drafts are from ProFootballNetwork.com. This is from a mock draft simulator. So some of these players may fall, some of these players may reach. I don't dictate, where players go unless I'm picking for that team. For example, Travis Moehrig probably should not be available here. I've seen some projections have him go in the first round. Washington needs a safety, and if they're able to get him in the second, that's absolutely amazing because he's one of the best players available. One of the best players available. Probably is, the best player available here in the second. He's one of the best safeties in the draft. But I really, really like that pick there. That's an A-plus pick, in my opinion. In the third round, I really like this one as well. Western Michigan wide receiver Dwayne Estridge. I mean, he's rising up draft boards a ton. Let's say about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, he was probably a 5th-round pick or so. I've seen some mock drafts have him in the second or, early third. And I know they have Terry McLaurin, who I'm a big fan of. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. If you get Estridge and Matt Jones, I mean, you have McLaurin, you have Antonio Gibson. You have, all of a sudden, you have a really young offense with a lot of potential. I mean, Estridge, he was great, at the Senior Bowl and everything. Great performance during the week and in the game. I really, really love that pick there in the third round. They also have another 3rd-round pick. And I had them taking Chaz Surratt, the linebacker from North Carolina. And Chaz Surratt is really interesting because going into North Carolina, he was actually a quarterback. Several years later, going to now, he's now one of the top linebacker prospects in the draft. He was all over the field, one of the best linebacker prospects. I know Washington's defense is so amazing and so young and talented, but I really think they could use a little bit more help on linebacker. And I've even seen some, mock drafts have them taking, Micah Parsons or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, in the first round. So I think this is a pretty good pick here. You don't really want to take a linebacker in the first round, I want to think. Especially, I mean, if you're able to get a guy like Chaz Surratt in the third, or maybe even, Tony Fields in West Virginia in the fourth round. Speaking of the fourth round, in the fourth, I had him taking Keith Taylor, the corner from Washington. They could use a little bit more corner help. I mean, their defensive line's great. Their linebacker core is decent, but corner to me, Keith Taylor is really underrated. So I really like that pick there in the fourth. In the fifth, I had them taking, Chaz Surratt in the third. So in the fifth, I had them taking, actually Chaz Surratt's brother, Sage Surratt, who is a wide receiver at Wake Forest University. To me, I think this is a pretty good pick here. I mean, he probably should not be available. You get two really young wide receivers, and Dwayne Estridge and Sage Surratt, two really talented and receivers, and they're being overlooked because how loaded this wide receiver class is. If this was a normal wide receiver class, I think that both these guys, be drafted a lot earlier in the draft, and you give Matt Jones so many young wide receivers to throw to, like Surratt and Eskridge and Terry McLaurin. I mean, that really sets up to really for nice young offense for Washington football team. So the Washington football team does not have a 6th round pick. They actually have 2 7th round picks. So going to the 7th round, I have them taking Christian Upoff from Illinois State. I like him a lot. He's really, really underrated. You look at small school prospects, James Robinson, he actually played at Illinois State. He was undrafted, had over 1,000 rushing yards this past season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kyle Duggar, he played Lenore Ryan. It was a 2nd round pick for the New England Patriots this past season. I was actually able to do an interview with Kyle Duggar last season for my podcast I used to have. But, he was really good. And I think Christian Upoff could be another one of those, small school guys. And I know I had them taking, Travis Morag in the 2nd round. But that was just, you cannot pass him up in the 2nd round, in my opinion. And I know I'm doubling down on safety, but it's the 7th round. I mean, he may not be necessarily guaranteed to make the team, but it's not like you're using a top pick on him. It's a low-risk, high-reward situation, in my opinion. But I really, really like that pick there. So with their other 7th round pick, I have them taking Matt Bushman, the tight end from BYU. Matt Bushman played pretty well this past season with BYU, especially, with Zach Wilson being his starting quarterback. Had a decent amount of targets. I think they could use tight end depth here in the 7th, especially Logan Thomas. I like Logan Thomas, but I believe he's like 30 years old, which, he doesn't really seem that old to me. But Matt Bushman, I think he has potential to be a decent tight end in the NFL. So that was their last pick in this mock draft. I will go over these picks here one more time. I personally really, really like this mock draft for the Washington football team. In the 1st round, I had them taking Matt Jones, the quarterback of Alabama. In the 2nd, Travis Morag, the safety from TCU University. In the 3rd, Dwayne Estridge, the wide receiver from Western Michigan. With their other 3rd round pick, Chaz Surratt, the linebacker from North Carolina. In the 4th, Keith Taylor, the cornerback from Washington University. In the 5th round, Sage Surratt, Chaz Surratt's brother, the wide receiver from Wake Forest. They do not have a 6th round pick. They have 2 7ths, though. Their first 7th, Christian Upoff, the safety from Illinois State. And with their last pick of the draft and their 2nd 7th round pick, I have them taking Matt Bushman, the tight end from BYU University. Thank you all so much for watching. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it so much. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time on the Sports 2 Hunt Show.